How to smash an interview. Woo! Okay, cool. So before we start, please share, like, subscribe, comment down below. I'm trying to hit the algorithm, man. I know we're small, man. I know we're small, but we're trying to get to 1,000 subs as soon as we can. So any help would be amazing on that. But yeah, let's get into this. So the way I want to set this out is, I think I'll start with kind of more generic sort of interview tips that I do, and then from there what we'll do is we will go into maybe like I'll go off on different strands that are specifically for maybe IB. I think that's the way I'm going to do this. So, you know, this can be used for grad jobs, but even like experienced hire jobs, I'll do the difference between those as well as I go along. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So when you get an interview, firstly, you will usually get an email or whatever it is saying who you're going to be meeting. The first thing I always do is go on the LinkedIn of those people and just do a bit of research. I always literally just have a look at where they've worked before, what the current role is, how long they've been at the company, their uni that they went to, even if they're like 20 years old, like 20 years experience. I'll just literally look at everything and I'll try to find something that I can talk about. If you've got nothing in common with them, it doesn't matter. But if you have, expand on that and use it for your interview. Always do this. The other thing is always look at if it's like what kind of interview it's going to be. So especially for IB and stuff, you'll have split into competency and technical interviews generally. So make sure that you're revising for the right thing. I think that's really important because otherwise you can just mess yourself over. So I think the first thing I want to really sort of go into is understanding the role and the company that you're applying to. I know this sounds generic and stuff, but a lot of people, I feel like they don't really do it. Hopefully you've applied for a role where there's been a job description. So please reread that job description to the, like, you should know that JD like the back of your hand, I'll be real. In terms of experience or qualifications or day-to-day what they're looking for. You should literally be able to, especially with you should almost, what I do generally, so this is more for experience maybe more than grad roles, but you can apply it to grad roles as well. Where it says experience and stuff or like requirements, try to literally answer every single one of those points. So the way that I do it is I like to look at what experience I have, and it's like, oh, so experience in modeling, experience in IPOs, experience in doing ECM transactions, and I literally try to have an example for each one of those. If it's like for grad roles, for instance, it's looking for different things in terms of analytical skills, whatever it is, ability to work under pressure and stuff, have examples for each one of those different points. This is really going to help you when you're literally looking to answer questions when they come up with stuff. This is mainly on the competency side, but I think it's just really, really important to understand that JD and have like answers for absolutely everything. That's the way I like to over prepare for these. Probably too much, but I think it's better to over prepare than under prepare, right? And the other thing is the company. For smaller companies, it can be harder to sort of research them, but for the larger companies, which generally they're the ones that offer more grad roles. So this is more for grad stuff, like they have generally a careers website. One thing to do is really look into sort of all the values they have on there, things like that, and try to understand how you align with those values. So if it's to do with, I don't know, integrity, you need to be able to sort of evidence that you have integrity, stuff like that. And like, or I know, for instance, sometimes they say like entrepreneurial mindset or things like that. You have to be able to be like, oh, like I have that because I remember when I started, I don't know, a small business or whatever it is, I tried to start a small business, or I was part of a team. Like you can even talk about what's that thing that you do in like year 12 and 13, the business young enterprise thing. Even it shows an entrepreneurial mindset. So there's different things that you can do there. When you are researching the company, this is more so probably if you're getting an experience role. One thing really important to do is like recent transactions and stuff, recent news on the company. What has a company recently done in the last year or so, or in the last 5 years? Has there been any massive structural changes? Have they opened new offices? Have they decided to change the business? Are they more focused on one thing or another? Look at their recent creds. So for instance, if they've done any transactions recently, have a look in the news where they've been like, this is more for IB, but like financial advisors, or have they done any buy side, sell sides? What kind of companies were they looking at, and what are their presences in different sectors as well. You can get a lot of this information from the internet, a lot from their actual company website. Some companies literally note like the recent deals they've done just to try and show off. So you need to really understand that, like that side of the company. Another thing I think which is important is just understanding, for instance, if you're on a grad role, a lot of these grad roles have rotations. You need to, again, going back to the JD thing, you need to understand like how you're going to be rotated in and out and stuff. And if you don't know, it's a good question to ask at the end. But if it's all given for you, always another good thing to do is look on like forums online. You can generally like find some stuff there about grad programs, people who have been part of the grad program. You can always ask them. From that, you could also try and find out people through LinkedIn who are on the grad program right now. Why not shoot them a message? You might get aired. It is what it is. But if you can get some feedback from them, what it's like, you can utilize that and name drop them in your interviews as well. That is a really, really good tip, I would say, for sure. Now, the next one I want to go on to is how to answer questions. So there's this common STAR approach that is bandied about, and for good reason. It is a very, very good technique. And I do basically my own version of that in my head. The way I like to think about when someone asks me like, tell me a time you did this, like tell me a time when you had to be in a room in part of a team where you had a common goal, but something went awry, how did you deal with it and what was your conclusion? If someone says something like a competency-based question like that, set it up like the STAR method. But what I do is I pretend it's like doing a science experiment at school. And when I did science experiments at school, we would have to set out the report with the hypothesis at the top. The next bit was the method. The next bit was your results. And the last bit was your conclusion. And I literally try to answer the question that I've just been asked exactly like that. I basically work through that in my mindset. Sometimes it's hard to come, like I've done a lot of ERICs. I've done a lot of interviews. So for me, it's slightly easier to go back to examples, but a good way is literally, again, looking online what type of competency questions that this role might be able to like throw up, and then always prepare your answers beforehand and just try to put it into bullet points in your head so you can just refer back to it. That's the way I like to do it. But yeah, the STAR method, I think they call it situation, task, action and result. Literally the same thing that I've kind of done with my science method. But yeah, that is generally the approach you have to take for competency-based questions. And like I said, for IB, I've been in situations where you have a competency-based interview and then a technical-based interview. So just ensure you know how to answer the questions that are going to come your way. When you are being asked these competency-based questions, I think it's really important to sort of stand out a little bit. The other thing is, I want to say is, sometimes they ask you what are your strengths and your weaknesses, and people are always like, crap man, what can I say for weaknesses? Obviously you don't want to say a weakness like I turn up late or anything like that. My go-to weakness is always that I'm a perfectionist, which means that sometimes I can I tend to like overthink things at times. Like I tend to overdo things, and so I'm getting better at that. Or another one that I usually say is like delegating, because I like to review absolutely everything. Delegating to more juniors can be quite hard for me at times, but I'm getting better at it. You have to show that you're improving in that situation. So they're the kind of weaknesses I generally go for. With strengths, just roll them off. Hopefully that you'll be good at that. But another thing that I want to say, especially in competency-based ones, is you have to look at stuff from different perspectives. I remember I've had situations where I'll go back to the one where they mentioned, oh, so you're working in a group where tell me when you've been part of a team where there's been a member of the team who hasn't been on board with everything and there's been a disruption. How did you deal with it? You've got to look at it from all different perspectives. So from the team perspective, you have to look at it. So, we tried to rationalize everything. We had a common goal. We tried to move forward with it, and things like that. But the other way you have to also look at it is that you didn't want to basically just totally dismiss that individual's idea if it was a crap idea. So you need to say, oh, so you know what? I took that on board and we said, okay, you know what, let's run with your idea, but in this one in parallel, and see which ones give better results at the end. You need to be as diplomatic as you can. That's what's worked for me generally in interviews for sure. Now, commercial awareness. Commercial awareness is key. I've said in multiple videos that I personally use the Guardian business page I scan that every day for about 15-20 minutes, just reading the main headlines. I don't do too much, I'll be real. People do a lot more than me. Obviously, Financial Times is great, Bloomberg News is great, and there are so many other ways to get good news. But it's important that you're in the know. And it's not just like recent news, it's good to understand what's been happening in the last couple of years, or has there been any big events in the last 5 to 10 years, and how did that shift the market? You need to also form your own opinion on this stuff. I think it's super, super important to do that. I was on a podcast recently, a few months ago, and this girl who is working at JPM grad program, she mentioned that, and I was like, that is golden. She was like, people, they ask you a question, you'll just regurgitate something from the news, but then what they actually want to hear is you form an opinion. So you have to have your own stance on different things. So I'll in recent interviews that I conducted, for instance, I used to ask people about the budget. So the budget was announced last year from a public entity standpoint, which is the division I used to work in within investment bank. We want to understand what people's views are on, for instance, the IHT tax relief coming down to 50% by 50%. What effect did we think that? We're asking what effect did they think that'll have on the market? And a lot of applicants didn't know what to say, really. You could tell they were scrambling. So you have to preempt these questions sometimes. So big things that have happened, you've got to have your opinion on stuff. Otherwise, it shows a lack of, from my perspective, it shows a lack of interest in that job. I might be completely wrong in thinking that, but there are people who are bloody hungry for this. And if you can't form your own opinion on stuff, it means that you literally just turn up to this interview and just research the day before. That's the way it comes across. Really try and understand like specific sector stuff. If you're going into a specific sector, it's really good to, even like some reports where people are looking like 5 years in the future, where's this sector going to be, blah, blah, blah. Incorporate that into your answer if you want to. And yeah, like I said, form your own opinions. It's also really important to check what, like I said, in terms of activity, what the company are doing. Have they acquired anything? Have they sold anything? Like, you just got to be in the know with this stuff, because honestly, it's just, you can tell by someone if they actually want it or not. Personally, that's the way it comes across. Another thing that I think a lot of people dismiss is knowing your CV in and out and your cover letter in and out. So by this point, you've probably sent bare CVs, bare cover letters, whatever it is. But if you don't know the one that you sent to this company in and out, it comes across bad. I've interviewed people like this. I remember someone sent something which was really good piece of work, like separately, and I was like, that's why they got the final interview. And I started quizzing them on it, and because they did that like 6 months ago, and they probably haven't looked at it since, they didn't really know what to say. So I'm talking about how, I mentioned this before, like someone, I thought it was amazing. They basically built a model and basically did like a mini deck on a public company that they were interested in. And yeah, so they did a bit of background, did like a 10-page deck, and they did a football field valuation, where they think it can go to and where they think a good price is if someone came in with an offer. Really good work. It had been done like 6 months ago, but in the interview, I started quizzing them on that, and the person just didn't know what to say. So anything that you've submitted, you should know it absolutely inside out, because it will not come across well. Yeah, and unfortunately, even if you're going for bare interviews, it's just the way it is. Like, you have to pretend, even if you don't want to, that this is like the job for you. Like, this is the one. There is no other job on this planet. It is this one that you need. And if you do not come across like that, I would not hire you, personally. That's the way I see it. Like, I'm all about attitude and hunger. And if I don't see that in someone, it's because there's so many people going for these roles. I'm of the sort of mindset that I was in the hiring process of an experienced candidate. So maybe it's slightly different to grad stuff, but this applies for grads as well. I really couldn't care what uni you went to at that point, because I know you've got your ACA from Big Four and all that stuff. Now it's more about attitude. How badly do you want it? Honestly, I don't even care where you've worked. Like, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to like work at the best places and stuff. I think it's really important to just show that attitude and energy, and that's how that goes a long way in these for me, for sure. I think one thing that I want to say, especially for banking ones, is your motivations to wanting to work in investment banking. I've never heard this, but apparently people do it. People talk about the money. Dumbest thing I can think of genuinely to do is talk about the money in investment banking interviews. You've got to have genuine motivation for what they do. So you know, like I said, know the role inside out. But on top of that, you need to understand that it's a very demanding role and the work is very variable. So you need to be like, you know what, I have some sort of interest in finance, whatever it is. Have you invested? Have you got a trading portfolio? Have your family done investments? Has your family got a company? Whatever it is, like if you worked in an accountancy firm, literally you need to showcase that you have an interest in finance somehow. Even just by going to university and doing your A-levels, whatever it is, you need to be like, I've wanted to go into finance since here because of this. Speak passionately about it. The other thing is, it is a high pressure environment and it's so fast paced. So you've got to, I would say you need to be like, I love just like the intensity and things like that. Like I love generally intensity anyway, but but I think you have to come across like, you know, like I love working in a fast paced environment where I like to be pushed to the limit to really sort of reach my potential. I want a job that is helping me get there. Another thing is obviously like problem solving, teamwork. That's a given. I think that should just roll off the tip of your tongue in any job. I'll be real with it. But when asked about the long hours and stuff, you need to show that you don't shy away from putting in the hours to do hard work. You're all about like delivering a high quality output. That is the key, because they know that like you should know that these are going to be long ass hours, but how do you keep motivated for that? You need to be like, you know, like the satisfaction you get of finishing something and potentially winning business for your company, and potentially then bringing that over the line and bringing in the fee. Like you need to think of it that way in terms of like the feeling that it will give to you personally. I think that's the way to go about it for sure. Another thing that is really come about is culture. So in the past, banking culture has been frowned upon. It is getting better from what I've heard. So you can talk about the culture of the firm and be like, this is what really attracts me. Think about the training that the company is going to give to you as well. You need to literally think about all aspects as well. It's really important. Now, I want to just touch upon technical interviews. I'll do a different one on technical tests, but just briefly on technical interviews, you're not going to be asked to do like a whole 3 statement model or anything like that. But they'll ask you to conceptually think, right, how does this tie into this? They'll be like, how does it work? How do the 3 statements work all together? They'll be like, okay, what is the importance of cash flows? How does that relate into evaluation? If I've got a company that has negative cash flows, how do I value that company? How do I value a growth company? How do I value, like, you need to be able to spit these off the tip of your tongue. If you're going for like a bank or a specific sector, understand what the valuation methodologies are behind that sector. You might even get things where they ask you basic stuff about WACC. They might ask you stuff about Gordon growth model, anything like that, DDM, whatever it is, they can spit these out at you and you have to be able to understand them. I've been caught out once in one interview on basically it was meant to be a competency one because I passed the technical one because I was crapping myself for the technical, and then the guy changed the competency into technical and I was not ready for it and I got caught out. So you've got to be ready for this. Be prepared to discuss a recent deal as well. They might say speak about a recent deal. When I talk about recent deals, not just the company, talk about numbers in the deal. How much did it go for? If it was a public company, what was the premium on it? How did that compare to the rest of the market? What were views of the market of it? I think it's really important to have this on board. One thing I want to say at the end is you have to prepare some questions for them. What I generally do, one of them is always, what would the ideal candidate look like who's applying for this role? Another one I always go to is I talk about what motivated them to join this firm and take this route. So they can, people love talking about themselves, literally you just need to let them gas. And then sometimes, if there has been some sort of recent change, like I talked about the budget, you can talk about how that's going to affect the company going forward and will it have an impact on whatever. Like, you need to think about literally some macro stuff that's going on and what impact it's had on the firm or it's going to have on the firm. They're the three sort of main questions I generally ask in interviews. If there's been a question where I didn't know the answer to, and this has happened once or twice to me, at the end when I ask questions, I ask them that question back. Once I remember once I did this and the lady just didn't know how to answer it, and I was like, you asked me to answer this when you didn't even know what the answer was. Make it make sense. And I just found that absolutely hilarious. I think before I go, I want to say the last point. I always used to make a cheat sheet before, especially like grad roles and stuff. I would make this sheet and I'd always update it. And this would be like my commercial awareness sheet. So as part of it, I would have like, stupidly, I don't know why, exchange rates, how much of the market's moved in the last day, week, month, 6 months, and year. And yeah, I used to do that from main markets like FTSE 100, S&P, New York Stock Exchange, and like NASDAQ. Like literally I would just do that. I'd always refresh my news articles as well on that sheet. And just before I go I'm one of these people, I literally just like to look at this stuff before I go into interviews. So it'd just be there. My cheat sheet used to be honestly, it's like my bloody Bible. But like I said, if you are applying for grad jobs, make sure that I would have my applications printed out, my application answers. Hopefully you saved those answers. The way I used to do applications was I used to do it all in Word and then paste it over. Hopefully you do that. So I used to print out all those. So I have them on me, or just have them on my phone so I can just quickly go into it. So I know that because they'll have your answers in front of you, and they'll have your CV and your cover letter. So when they're asking you questions, they'll be looking, a lot of the time they'll look at it and whatever. But yeah, I think that's it. I might do another one of these because I probably missed some stuff off. But I just wanted to give you my view on sort of how to smash an interview, to be honest with you. I think actually another thing I want to say is never, if you're going for an experienced hire role, try not to diss the company you're coming from. I think it's okay to say things weren't that right there, but always say like, I was grateful that they took a chance on me. Because at the end of the day, they didn't have to take a chance on you and they gave you a job. So there was a point in life where you wanted to work for them. Try to not reveal too much in terms of names and stuff like that, unless they know people who worked with you, then it's slightly easier. But I always try to not have names and things like that. I'd always say I worked on the project where I did this with this kind of company, That's the way I would approach it. But yeah, I think we're going to leave it there for today. Please comment down below any ideas you want to see. Please subscribe, please share, please like, all that good stuff. And yeah, we're not going to stop with this, man. It's a thing I want to keep going. I want to get to 1,000 subscribers as soon as I can. So please get me there. I did a wireless ticket giveaway, which, you know what? I think it's kind of mad for someone who, like me, who has literally no peas from any of these social media channels. Because I see I watched a video, this guy got 5 million views and he gave away a shirt to a subscriber, like a football shirt, which probably cost less than a wireless ticket. And I was like, mad. Anyway, so if you want, I want to get to a situation where I'm massive on this, right? And I'm able to give away loads of stuff. Because if I'm giving away this right now, imagine when I get peas and stuff, the amount of stuff I will give away. I love giving stuff to people. So if you want to be part of that, like, let's say, right, I know what we'll do. When I hit 1,000 subscribers, one of you will get something insane. I don't know what it is right now, but that is your incentive to really subscribe. But yeah, try and get me to 1,000 and I'll definitely do a giveaway. That's my plan. I might do a giveaway every 1,000 subscribers I get. Let's do that. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Please follow me on everything. Links in the description below. And yeah, peace.